June 14, 2023. It was 2:40 p.m. in Bavaria, Germany. The sound of screaming pierced through the peaceful afternoon air near Neuschwanstein Castle. A terrified voice echoed from a hidden trail 50 meters above a steep cliff. Two young women had come here to capture the perfect photograph. Instead, one of them was about to take her final breath. What happened in those next few minutes would shock the world. A stranger's friendly smile had lured them into an unimaginable nightmare. This is the story of Eva Liu and Kelsey Chang, two brilliant computer science graduates with bright futures ahead of them. They thought they were living their dream European adventure. They had no idea they were walking straight into the hands of a predator. Today we uncover the truth behind one of Germany's most shocking tourist crimes, a case that exposed the dark reality hiding behind a fairy tale castle. Eva Liu was living her dream. At just 21 years old, she had already accomplished what many only hope for. She had graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in computer science. But that wasn't the most exciting part. Microsoft had offered her a position as a software engineer. One of the world's biggest tech companies wanted Eva on their team. She was scheduled to start working in just 1 month. Eva came from a loving family who had immigrated from China years ago. Her parents worked tirelessly to give their daughter every opportunity. They were so proud of what Eva had achieved. She was their American dream come true. Those who knew Eva described her as brilliant but humble. She never bragged about her achievements. Instead, she focused on helping other students with their coding projects. Eva believed in lifting others up as she climbed. Her professors remembered her as someone who asked thoughtful questions. She would stay after class to discuss complex algorithms. Eva had a genuine passion for technology and problem solving. But Eva wasn't just about work and studies. She loved photography and had been planning this European trip for months. She wanted to capture the beauty of historic castles and ancient cities. This was her reward to herself before starting her career. Her social media posts from the trip showed a young woman full of joy and wonder. Pictures of her smiling in Budapest, enjoying pastries in Vienna, taking selfies in Prague. Eva was creating memories that should have lasted a lifetime. On June 13th, she posted her last photo on Instagram. It was a picture of her and Kelsey at their hotel in Munich. The caption read, "Tomorrow we visit the fairy tale castle. So excited." Little did she know this excitement would soon turn into terror. Kelsey Chang was Eva's best friend and travel companion. At 22 years old, she had also just graduated from the University of Illinois with the same computer science degree. The two young women had met during their freshman year and quickly became inseparable. Kelsey came from a hardworking family as well. Her parents had always emphasized the importance of education and pursuing your dreams. They were incredibly proud when Kelsey graduated with honors from one of America's top engineering programs. Unlike Eva, Kelsey was still exploring her career options after graduation. She had received several job offers but wanted to take some time to decide her path. This European adventure was the perfect opportunity to clear her mind and think about her future. Friends described Kelsey as the more outgoing one of the pair. While Eva was quiet and thoughtful, Kelsey was energetic and always ready for new experiences. She was the one who had originally suggested the European backpacking trip. For the past 3 weeks, the two friends had been having the time of their lives. They had carefully planned every detail of their journey. They researched safe neighborhoods, booked accommodations in advance, and always stayed together after dark. Kelsey was known for being safety conscious. She had insisted on carrying pepper spray and keeping their families updated with daily check-ins. The irony was heartbreaking. These two responsible young women had done everything right to protect themselves. Their friendship was built on trust and shared dreams. They had supported each other through difficult exams, celebrated each other's successes, and now they were exploring Europe together. This trip was supposed to be the perfect ending to their college years. On the morning of June 14th, Kelsey woke up excited about visiting Neuschwanstein Castle. She had been looking forward to this day since they started planning the trip. She had no idea that by evening, her life would be forever changed. Troy Bowling appeared to be just another American tourist enjoying his vacation in Germany. At 31 years old, he seemed like an ordinary man exploring Europe on his own. He wore a simple cap, t-shirt, and jeans. Nothing about his appearance suggested the monster that lurked beneath. Troy lived a quiet life back in Lincoln, Nebraska. He shared an apartment with his younger brother and kept to himself most of the time. Neighbors described him as polite but distant. He would take walks around the neighborhood but rarely engaged in long conversations with anyone. Those who knew Troy were shocked when news of his arrest spread. His friends and neighbors couldn't believe the accusations. They insisted there must be some mistake. The Troy they knew was calm, reserved, and showed no signs of violent behavior. Troy had been in a relationship with a white American woman for 3 years. His ex-girlfriend later told police that he had never shown any aggressive or violent tendencies toward her. She described him as emotionally distant but never threatening or abusive. What authorities discovered later painted a very different picture. Troy had been communicating with a woman named Chanita Kungpol, who lived in Thailand. They had met through an online gaming platform several months earlier. Their conversations had become increasingly personal over time. On the morning of June 14th, Troy had sent Chanita several messages. He told her about his plans to visit Neuschwanstein Castle that day. He seemed excited about the trip and shared photos of the scenic views. His messages showed no hint of the violence that would soon follow. The last message Troy sent to Chanita was at 1:53 p.m. It was a photo of himself smiling on a small trail overlooking the castle. After that, his phone went silent. This was exactly when he encountered Eva and Kelsey at the crowded bridge. What transformed this seemingly ordinary man into a killer remains a disturbing mystery, but the evidence would later reveal the dark fantasies that had been growing in his mind. It was 2:00 p.m. on June 14th when fate brought these three strangers together. Eva and Kelsey had just arrived at Marienbrücke, the famous bridge overlooking Neuschwanstein Castle. The view was everything they had hoped for and more. The bridge was packed with tourists from around the world. Everyone wanted the perfect shot of the fairy tale castle. Eva and Kelsey joined the long line, chatting excitedly about the stunning scenery. They had waited months for this moment. As they stood in line, speaking English to each other, a friendly voice interrupted their conversation. "Excuse me, are you American?" The voice belonged to Troy Bowling, who had approached them with a warm smile. Troy explained that he was also from the United States and was traveling through Germany alone. He seemed genuinely happy to meet fellow Americans in this foreign place. Eva and Kelsey, naturally friendly people, welcomed the conversation. The three began talking about their European adventures. Troy shared recommendations about places he had visited. He seemed knowledgeable about the area and spoke confidently about various tourist attractions. Eva and Kelsey were impressed by his travel experience. As they chatted, Troy mentioned that he knew about a secret photo spot. He claimed it offered a much better view of the castle than the crowded bridge. The location was more private, he said, and perfect for taking amazing photos without the crowds. Eva and Kelsey exchanged glances. As experienced travelers, they usually avoided going to isolated places with strangers. But it was broad daylight and they were surrounded by hundreds of tourists. The atmosphere felt safe and festive. Troy continued to persuade them, describing the incredible views they could capture. He seemed so enthusiastic and genuine about sharing this hidden gem. After some hesitation, Eva and Kelsey decided to trust this friendly American tourist. At 2:20 p.m., the three of them left the bridge together. They followed Troy down a small trail that led away from the main tourist area. This simple decision would change everything. None of them could imagine what would happen next. The trail was more difficult than Eva and Kelsey had expected. The rocky path was slippery, and both women stumbled several times as they followed Troy deeper into the woods. They began to feel tired and questioned whether this was really worth it. "Maybe we should turn back," Kelsey suggested to Troy. "We're getting pretty far from the main area." Eva nodded in agreement. They had been walking for nearly 20 minutes and the secret photo spot seemed nowhere in sight. But Troy insisted they continue. "We're almost there," he said with increasing urgency. "It would be such a shame to turn back now. Just a little bit further." His tone had changed from friendly to almost demanding. At exactly 2:40 p.m., they finally reached the destination. Troy had been telling the truth about one thing. The view of Neuschwanstein Castle from this hidden spot was absolutely breathtaking. The fairy tale castle spread out below them in all its glory. Kelsey walked ahead to get a better look at the scenery. "This is incredible," she called back to Eva. "I'm so glad we came up here." She was catching her breath and preparing to take photos when she heard something that made her blood freeze. A scream. Eva's scream. Kelsey spun around to see Eva on the ground with Troy on top of her. His hands were wrapped tightly around Eva's neck. Eva was struggling desperately, her legs kicking as she fought for her life. Kelsey rushed toward them, but Troy was much stronger than she was. As Eva's struggles grew weaker, Troy suddenly stood up. Without hesitation, he turned toward Kelsey and grabbed her throat with both hands. The pressure increased as Troy began pushing Kelsey backward. Behind her was a 50-meter drop to the rocks below. Kelsey fought with everything she had, but Troy's grip was too strong. He continued pushing her toward the edge. In one terrifying moment, Troy shoved Kelsey over the cliff. She fell 50 meters down, the equivalent of a 17-story building. By some miracle, tree branches broke her fall and she survived the impact. Troy watched Kelsey disappear over the edge, then calmly walked back to Eva. What happened next was too horrific to describe in detail. He assaulted her while she lay unconscious, recording everything on his phone. At 2:55 p.m., a couple hiking in the area heard disturbing sounds coming from the hidden trail. When they approached to investigate, they witnessed a scene that would haunt them forever. They saw Troy assaulting an unconscious woman while filming the attack with his phone. When Troy noticed the witnesses, he acted with shocking calmness. "Oh, sorry about that," he said casually. "Just keep walking." He pretended as if this was a normal romantic encounter between consenting adults in the woods. But the couple quickly realized something was terribly wrong. The woman beneath Troy appeared unconscious, and there were visible scratch marks on his face and neck. Without hesitation, they called the police while keeping their distance from the dangerous situation. As the couple was making the emergency call, Troy committed his final horrific act. He picked up Eva's unconscious body and threw her over the 50-meter cliff. The witnesses watched in horror as he discarded her like a piece of trash. Emergency responders arrived within minutes of receiving the call. Rescue teams immediately located both Eva and Kelsey at the bottom of the cliff. Both women were airlifted to the nearest hospital, but their conditions were vastly different. Kelsey had suffered severe injuries throughout her body, but miraculously, she was conscious and able to speak. The tree branches that broke her fall had saved her life. She was able to tell police exactly what had happened and identified Troy as their attacker. Eva's condition was far more critical. She had suffered devastating head injuries and trauma to her entire body from the fall. Although she was initially conscious when rescue teams found her, her injuries were too severe. Eva died in the hospital the following day. When police arrived at the scene, Troy had already fled. But thanks to Kelsey's testimony, they had a clear description of the suspect. The castle grounds were immediately sealed off, and a massive manhunt began. Finding Troy wasn't difficult. The scratches on his face and neck from Eva's desperate fight made him stand out among the tourists. Within hours, German police had located and arrested him while he was still in the area. The arrest of Troy Bowling was captured on camera by dozens of tourists at Neuschwanstein Castle. Videos and photos of his capture spread instantly across social media platforms. Within hours, the entire world knew about this horrific crime. Germany typically protects the privacy of criminal suspects and rarely releases their identities to the public. But this case was different. The viral footage from tourists made it impossible to keep Troy's identity hidden. The cat was already out of the bag. When police searched Troy's belongings, they made disturbing discoveries. His phone contained the video he had filmed during Eva's assault. But that wasn't the most shocking find. His devices were filled with illegal content, including child pornography. Investigators also examined Troy's recent communications. They found messages between Troy and a woman named Chanita Kungpol from Thailand. The two had met through an online gaming platform and had been chatting for several months. On the morning of June 14th, Troy had sent Chanita multiple messages about his excitement to visit the fairy tale castle. He shared photos of the scenic views and seemed to be having a normal tourist experience. His final message was sent at 1:53 p.m. just before he encountered Eva and Kelsey. But buried within their conversations, investigators found something deeply troubling. Troy had explicitly told Chanita that he was attracted to Asian women. This revelation led psychological experts to believe Troy had developed what they called an Asian fetish. This wasn't simply a preference for dating people of Asian descent. Experts suggested Troy held disturbing fantasies about Asian women being submissive and easily controlled. He may have viewed them as objects rather than human beings with their own agency and strength. Police investigated Troy's romantic history and found he had previously dated a white American woman for 3 years. His ex-girlfriend reported that Troy had never shown violent or aggressive behavior toward her. This suggested his violence was specifically targeted at the Asian women who fit his twisted fantasies. The evidence painted a clear picture. Troy had not planned this attack in advance. Instead, when he encountered 2 young Asian women in an isolated location, his hidden desires and violent tendencies suddenly erupted. 2 innocent lives were destroyed by his sick obsession. In February 2024, Troy Bowling's trial began in a German court. He entered the courtroom with his face completely covered, hiding from the cameras and public attention. The charges against him were severe: murder, rape, attempted murder of Kelsey, and possession of illegal pornography. Surprisingly, Troy pleaded guilty to all charges. This wasn't an act of remorse or moral awakening. Legal experts believe Troy made a calculated decision based on Germany's prison system. German prisons are known to be more comfortable than American facilities. In German prisons, inmates typically share cells with only one other person. They can earn money through work programs and use that income to buy items from the prison store. Prisoners have access to television, computers, and various recreational activities. Some joke that German prison cells are better than many studio apartments. Troy likely realized that returning to America would mean facing much harsher punishment and prison conditions. By staying in Germany and pleading guilty, he could serve his sentence in relative comfort. It was a cold, selfish calculation that showed no genuine remorse for his victims. During his final statement, Troy claimed to be deeply sorry for his actions. He apologized to the victims and their families. But prosecutors argued that this was nothing more than a performance designed to reduce his sentence. They saw no genuine remorse in his words. The German court sentenced Troy to life in prison. However, German law allows prisoners to apply for parole after serving just 15 years. This means that Troy could potentially be free again when he turns 46 years old. The thought of his possible early release horrified victims' families and the American public. Many Americans were outraged that their citizen wouldn't face justice in the American legal system. They demanded Troy's extradition to the United States, where he could face the death penalty or life imprisonment without parole. However, no plans for his transfer have been announced. Meanwhile, Eva's body was returned to her family in America. The cost of international body repatriation is astronomically expensive, but generous donations from strangers made it possible. Eva was finally laid to rest in her homeland, surrounded by the family who loved her. Kelsey survived the attack but suffered severe psychological trauma. She has been working slowly to rebuild her life and return to normalcy. The young woman who once dreamed of exploring the world now struggles with the memories of that terrible day. The case of Eva Liu and Kelsey Chang shocked the world and exposed uncomfortable truths about violence against Asian women. What began as a dream European vacation ended in unimaginable tragedy. One brilliant young life was lost forever, and another was forever changed. Eva Liu should have started her career at Microsoft just weeks after returning from Germany. Instead, her family had to plan her funeral. She was only 21 years old with a bright future ahead of her. Her dreams of building innovative technology and making a difference in the world died with her on that German mountainside. Kelsey Chang survived, but she carries the trauma of that day with her always. The confident young woman who once loved exploring new places now struggles with anxiety and fear. Her recovery continues, supported by family, friends, and professional counselors who help her process the horror she witnessed. This case highlighted a dangerous phenomenon that often goes unnoticed. The fetishization of Asian women is not harmless attraction. It reduces human beings to stereotypes and can lead to devastating violence. Eva and Kelsey were not seen as individuals by their attacker. They were viewed as objects that fit his twisted fantasies. The story also raised questions about international justice. Troy Bowling committed horrific crimes against American citizens, yet he remains in a German prison where he may be eligible for parole in just 15 years. Many believe this punishment does not fit the severity of his crimes, but perhaps the most important lesson from this tragedy is about awareness and protection. Eva and Kelsey did everything right. They traveled together, stayed in safe areas, and avoided risky situations. Yet they still encountered evil disguised as kindness. We must teach young people to trust their instincts. When something feels wrong, it often is. The moment Eva and Kelsey felt uncomfortable on that trail, they should have left immediately. No photograph, no matter how beautiful, is worth risking your safety. Their story reminds us that monsters don't always look like monsters. Troy Bowling appeared to be a friendly fellow American traveler. Evil can wear a smile and speak in a familiar accent. We must stay vigilant and look out for one another. Eva Liu's memory lives on through her family's advocacy for victims' rights and violence prevention. Her story has educated countless people about the dangers of racial fetishization and the importance of international cooperation in pursuing justice. Time may pass, but the truth never fades. The stories of those who lost their way between hope and despair deserve to be told and remembered. We will continue to seek justice for the forgotten and bring light to the darkness. Thank you for joining us in uncovering these difficult truths. Please subscribe and share these stories so they are never forgotten. This has been Faded Clues.